Marathon has a problem. It needs players, it needs sales, and it needs them fast. It currently occupies a very specific niche, which naturally limits its ability to draw in new players. And while some people would blame the PvE format for that, I'd actually argue it's one of the game's strongest core design pillars. It just needs more around it. So before I go any further, let me introduce myself. I'm Ken, and I'm a professional game designer. I've spent a number of years working in the game industry, building gameplay systems and thinking about how those systems behave in the hands of players. And when I look at Marathon, the question I keep coming back to is, how can the game potentially reach more people without compromising the experience its core audience already loves? I'll say it again. I think PvE is central to Marathon's identity, and it should remain that way, because when it works incredibly well. But right now, it can be mentally demanding, either over long sessions or simply on off days, and it leaves very little room for lower intensity ways of engaging with the game. And that's where a PvE mode starts to make sense. So here's how I want to approach this. First, I'll explain the actual proposition, what a PvE mode could look like, and then I'll go into why I think it could work. After that, I'll talk about how it could evolve over time if it proves successful. And finally, what this could mean for Marathon long term. So here's what I'm proposing. A fully isolated solo PvE mode using Marathon's existing content, but completely separated from the main ecosystem. No shared economy, no shared vaults, no shared faction progression, no PvE farming for PvP advantages. Because the goal isn't to create an easier way to progress, but it's simply to create another way to engage with Marathon. Essentially, an offline solo version of the game. And honestly, there are three main reasons why this could work. First, it could start at a relatively low development cost because the core systems and content already exist. This would simply reuse what Bungie has already built. Second, it could broaden the audience Marathon appeals to while also giving players a lower pressure way to learn the game. Players who are interested in the lore, learning maps and loot locations, experimenting with runner abilities and weapons, or simply enjoying Bungie's gunplay without the constant strain of PvP. And it would also function as a learning environment, a place where players can familiarize themselves with systems, loot, weapons, and maps before stepping into higher stakes PvE. And lastly, it could help with player retention. Not everyone logs off because they dislike the game. Some do because they're burnt out or not in the right headspace for constant intensity. A PvE mode gives those players a way to stay engaged without fully dropping the game. And if it actually succeeds at retaining players and expanding the audience over time, then Bungie could iterate on it gradually and carefully. And that's where the future could become interesting. For example, an optional wipe system tied to seasonal content, so the player could choose to reset progression in exchange of new priority contracts, and not because wipes are mandatory, but because optional resets could help create new PvE progression loops over time. There's also a few interesting possibilities involving rebalancing of AI behaviors, solo catered in-run events, or even AI runner activity later on, but more importantly, those are future conversations. The goal of this proposition is restraint, not redesign. The goal is to create another sustainable way to engage with its world and bring in new players. And honestly, I think game preservation matters too. Increasingly, people are becoming hesitant to invest themselves in live service games that may eventually disappear forever. A solo offline capable PvE mode could help preserve at least part of Marathon long after servers eventually shut down years from now. And in an era where trust in the longevity of live service games is becoming increasingly fragile, I think that matters. Not only for players, but for the long-term legacy of the game itself. And maybe that's the real point of all this. I don't want Marathon to become less intense. I don't want it to lose what makes it special. I just think there's room for something else alongside it. A way to stay inside that world when you are not able to meet the required level engagement. A way to explore it, learn it, exist in it differently, without replacing what already makes it work. Because PvEVP doesn't need to be softened to be appreciated, and a PvE experience doesn't need to compete with it to have value. They can serve different purposes, different states of mind, different players, even within the same person. And if we want player to come back to Marathon over and over again, then I think it's worth asking whether it should only ask us to be one version of ourselves. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, subscribe, and let me know what you think. And if there are other games, systems, or design topics you'd like to see explored in future videos, I'd love to hear your suggestions in the comments. Thank you for watching, and stay awesome.